Hello and welcome to the Varietal Show on Varietal Literature's YouTube page. My name is Rory. If you've never been here before, basically what this is live writing where I try to have fun with writing. I am a writer. I'm a published author. And, oh, hello, Jenna and Big Drew. We got a lot of people hanging out in the chat today. What we're going to do today is basically just try to make really bad writing. Why am I trying to do that? Number one, because it's funny. But number two, because it's fun. But number three is because you learn a surprising amount by trying to dissect what makes writing bad. And if you don't learn, who cares? It's fun. All right. Sorry, I had something bad in my throat there for a second, and I was like, I'm going to clear it. And then I thought, no, that'd be gross. So we used the water instead. Well, let me catch up with the chat a bit, and then I'll talk a little bit about what we're going to do today. By the way, if you don't have any patience whatsoever for the talking parts of the show, check in the description. There will be timestamps that you can click that will take you to major things in the show, whatever they end up being, such as reading what we come up with at the end if you just want to see how that goes. So Big Drew is first in the chat today. I should start to be giving out prizes, although GS would always win. Says first, booyah. And then Big Drew says he missed last week because it was his birthday, but he celebrated the only way an adult can. He cleaned his apartment, went to bed early. You know, going to bed early isn't so bad. I was thinking back on some of my birthdays. I remember one birthday I got quite drunk and went to a theater to watch that Titan movie. It was it was a bad movie, I've heard, because I don't really remember it. I remember the ending when I got up. But I don't miss it that much. I just going to bed is nice. GS says, you beat me. Good evening, because GS is usually first. Jenna, yeah, Jenna is here. Jenna was here a few weeks ago, and we are happy to see her back. Hi, ready for the bad writing extravaganza. Big Drew also says hello to Jenna, and Big Drew says, Rory, as a literary person, how do you pronounce, the English sauce? Worcester is how I pronounce it, or Worcestershire, but Worcestershire sauce? Yeah, I'm trying to think. It's sort of like when you ask me, it's hard to pull it to mind, but I sort of like tying your shoelace, trying to break that down. Yeah, Worcestershire, I think, is basically where I wind up. Do you know that sauce was apparently an attempt by an Englishman who was coming back from the British colonies to replicate curry? I mean, it's a fine sauce, but curry? I am aware, though, that curries are pretty varied, so I don't know, maybe it matches up with a certain type of curry. And maybe that isn't... Big Drew says, Clash of the Titans or Wrath of the Titans? Probably Clash. Clash of the Titans, I would think. Yeah, I think so, because I doubt I would have gone to see the sequel. I don't know. Oh yes, and also happy birthday, Drew. Happy belated birthday. Okay. Well, what are we doing today? Well, in this show, because we do that live writing, one of the things we do is lit games or literature games. And let me explain what we're doing tonight. So lit games or literature games is where we write live, chat, throw stuff into the mix, and we basically are just kind of silly and have fun, because I think that's actually kind of the core of writing. And I do feel like sometimes writing videos are a little too systematic, here's how you build a character, whatever else. And I don't know, that's not really my experience of writing. What we're doing tonight, though, is we are going to try and write just the worst prose we can write. Just the worst writing we can do. Because, again, it's fun. I don't know, what you guys think in chat would be the premise of a really terrible story. One thing I want to clarify, though, is I'm not really going for, gross or really like strange necessarily. I mean genuinely bad. And like the first thing that came to mind for me was a lot of fantasy is a bad Tolkien ripoff. So we could go that path. But I don't know if chat you have something that you think we should try and make a really bad story out of, or a version of, with flat Mary Sue characters and stuff, let me know. Just fleece it out. Drew says, do you not like curry? Oh no, Drew. The only curry I care about is Tim Curry. Well, Gia says this week's theme is my strong point. Aw, I'm sure that's not true. All right. Okay. Let's talk about some terrible writing. So one of the things that will mark out terrible writing is lots of adjectives. Lack of focus. So lots of meandering and world explaining. Jenna says, ooh, that, or we could go the infamous My Immortal fanfic route. You mean like, I mean, basically what Twilight is? Or is that something else? I'm less versed in fanfic. Let me know. Just fleece it out. A lot of people are talking about curry, so we're going to have to work curry into this story. Just fleece it out says, I wish I had curry. Curry, you know, here's, for people who don't know me very well, I'm actually a pretty notable cook. I trained a bit as one and worked in a kitchen for a while. And one thing I will tell you that is underrated is Japanese curry, which is quite easy to make. And you can get in most grocery stores, honestly, the makings of them. All you really need to find is there's sort of these hard packed spices in little sealed containers. They're flat green boxes. They're a rectangle. You can find them in most shelves. You get that, you get some new potatoes, you get some carrots, and you get some onions and chicken or tofu, maybe beef, but really chicken or tofu. And basically you just sort of rough chop it all and throw it into a pan, saute it for a little bit, not very long, and then you throw some water in one of those and let it boil for a bit, and then you throw one of those flavor cubes in. It thickens it up and it makes a great curry. Oh, Big Drew says the Evanescence song My Immortal. I mean, Evanescence is definitely the thing. What makes terrible choppy sentences? Every sentence starts with I. Hey, 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 hey. This is getting personal now. What do you mean every sentence starts with I? Repetitive words. At some point, this is going to seem specific, but I promise you, at some point, the word scarlet is used. Whoa, what happened there? Is used unironically. Changing tenses mid-sentence will probably happen anyways, because to be honest, it's hard to do. It's hard to keep your eye on that. That's something editors usually get. Jenna says, fanfic is the mother of all terrible fanfics. It's a Harry Potter one. It's got lots of adjectives, nonsensical pacing, and many gratuitous author's notes in the chapters. People put their own notes in the chapters. I've never, well, I guess there's one person I can think of that does that, but they are hailed as a genius for doing it, and that is, Infinite Jest guy. I can't think of his name right now. The My Immortal fanfic took its title. Oh, this is a real fanfic. Okay, let me see if I can find it. I know this isn't good form. I'm gonna take you off this screen for a second, just in case I find something horrible. But now I want to see it. I'm curious now. My Immortal fanfic. Oh no. Okay. I can find where it starts. Okay, I'll tell you what. I don't really want to like bang on anybody's attempts at writing, but if it's the basis of so much, I will read maybe like okay, the first chapter is literally just like 3 paragraphs. So I will read the first chapter. I hope this doesn't go in a saucy direction or anything. Chapter 1. There's a note. Oh, author's note. I don't know what this means, so buckle in. Special fangs, and then in brackets it says, get it cause I'm gothic, but not spelled properly. To my girlfriend, GF. Ew, not in that way. Raven, blood tears 666 for helping me with the story and helping you rock. Justin, you're the love of my depressing life. You rock too, MCR rocks! Well, I know what MCR is. It's My Chemical Romance. Okay, I think that's just the author's note. Here's the beginning of the story. Hi, my name is Ebony Darkness. Dementia Raven Way. What? Ebony Darkness Dementia Raven Way. Who puts the name Dementia? That's not a cool thing. Like, I get Raven. I kind of expect that. And Darkness and Ebony and that's whatever else. And I have long black ebony hair. That's how I got my name. How would your parents know that? With purple streaks and red tips that reaches my mid-back and icy blue eyes like limpid tears. Limpid is a pretty cool word to be using here. I mean, it doesn't really work, but I'm kind of impressed that somebody's using a word like limpid. It's not a common word around, and it works well enough. And a lot of people tell me I look like Amy Lee. Oh, okay. So we're going to dunk. People are going to, in the chat, dunk on fanfic for doing this. But I want to point out that in the first, 5 pages of the popular author that I hate the most, frankly, dude who did Da Vinci Code. I can't even remember his name right now because I'm very bad with names, if you haven't noticed. In the first 5 pages of that book, he describes the main character as looking like Indiana Jones or something to that effect. So, before we start bagging on 13-year-olds writing Harry Potter fanfic, I'd like to point out that people with editors behind them do crap like that. I'm not going to read the whole thing. I'm just going to read the whole first chapter, but thanks for the heads up on the sauciness. And if you don't know who she is, get the hell out of here. Well, Amy Lee, I believe, is the lead singer of Evanescence, if my memory serves. I'm not related to Gerard Way, but I wish I was because he's a major effing hottie. I'm a vampire, but my teeth are straight and white. I have pale white skin. I'm also a witch, and I go to a magic school called Hogwarts in England, where I'm in the 7th year, in brackets, I'm 17. This is so cute. I don't think this is terrible. I think this is cute. I'm a goth, in case you couldn't tell, and I wear mostly black. I mean, it's like a kid trying to find their identity, right? And they're just sort of mishmashing the things they like together. Why not? I love Hot Topic, and I buy all my clothes from there. For example, today I was wearing a black corset with matching lace around it and a black leather mini skirt, pink fishnets, black combat boots. I was wearing black lipstick, white foundation, black liner, and a red eyeshadow. I was walking outside Hogwarts. It was snowing and raining, so there was no sun, which I was very happy about. A lot of preps stared at me. I'm assuming preppies. I put up my middle finger at them. Hey, Ebony, shouted a voice. I looked up. It was ... Draco Malfoy! Exclamation mark. Did I do that read right? Wait. Let me do it again. It was Draco Malfoy. What's up, Draco? I asked. Nothing, he said shyly. Since when was Draco shy? But then I heard my friends call me and I had to go away. Author's note, is it good? Please tell me, Fangs. Aw. Well, Yes, I guess we can learn a lot about like what's not good writing there. But it's so cute. Okay, I'm not gonna bag on anybody else's art. This isn't a professional author. They're allowed to do what they want. Hogwarts has always sounded like an STD to me, says Big Drew. Jenna says, this has been out since early 2000s internet, and Lord, I remember when this first came out. I mean, fanfic like that's been around since like the 60s. They used to like have magazines based around it, if not earlier, honestly. The history of writing really is fanfic. I know people like George R.R. Martin really bag on it. Like they have all these weird philosophies why it's bad, fundamentally a bad idea and whatever. I don't agree with any of that. I think most of the literary history is just sort of thinly disguised fan fiction. I never really did fan fiction, but I respect it. And I mean, it's a kid, right? Like, having fun on the internet. Maybe they turned out to be a good writer. Nonetheless, it's a funny way to write. So, terrible writing. Big Drew, just Fleece It Out says they make a wand for that, for the STD. Okay, so what is our story then? Well, I mean, Harry Potter's taken. The other thing that you get is terrible science fiction, but I feel like that is so, like, that's less exposed and it's less common. Like, unless you're in those circles, I don't think people really get much of that. Jenna says, I love fan fiction and used to write a lot of it. That's good. You know, like, not everybody needs to write great prose or completely original content. Writing is just fun for its own sake. Okay. We gotta open with hello. Because I actually have read some fanfic before, though. Even though I've never really done it non-ironically, I'm sorry to say. But for some reason, they do open like a letter almost all the time. Jenna says, and I don't shade on them, I just immediately thought of it when bad writing. I mean, yeah, I think it's bad writing. I mean, I guess I hesitate to say that, because you could just say it's a different style, but, like, it's a difficult writing to immerse yourself in, and it's very indulgent. Big Drew says, let's do To Kill a Mockingbird fanfic. Now, this is going to blow your mind, but I've never read To Kill a Mockingbird. Now, every time I say this, because I really should have at this point, people don't believe it, because I'm a writer. I've written lots of stuff and read an enormous amount of books, mostly from that era, to be honest. Like, I'm a big into the Beats a lot. All the different generations. I can't think of any of their names right now, like Ginsberg and stuff. But I have these weird gaps in my reading history. So I don't know To Kill a Mockingbird very well. I know the movie, but I don't think I could do it much justice, because I know the movie's quite different. Gotta kind of pick popular stuff. I mean, Harry Potter is the main one. I guess I am cautious about how toxic it has become to touch. Because of its stupid author. The Big Drew says, I'd love to see a Honeymooners fanfic. Oh yeah, but is anyone gonna get that, Big Drew? Like, if I sat here and I was like, let's do a Bewitched or I Dream of Jeannie fanfic, how many people are gonna get it? Crime and Punishment fanfic. That might be a little heavy. Big Drew says, I do recommend it. It's a wonderful story. Harper Lee's describing things as wonderful. Oh, good. Big Drew says, Batman fanfic. Well, the Batman just came out. That's true. You know, what people really get into, though, is like I can't do that. That's going to be weird. Let's just do generic fantasy, okay? So let's just start with fantasy. Let's forget the fanfic for a second. It was mid... I want us to start thinking of, like, Jenna says, I loved her I Dream of Jeannie and Bewitched. I do too, but I think nobody knows it really anymore. I don't really know Bewitched that well anymore, but I have rewatched I Dream of Jeannie in the last few years. But I used to watch them both a lot because they used to come on, I don't know, some classics channel. Man, I am distractible tonight. I promise you, writing happens on this show. Okay. I need stupid fantasy concepts and names. Jenna says, I agree with the fantasy. Sorry for derailing with the fanfic bit. Never need to apologize in the chat. I am the master of all my decisions. Nobody else is responsible for them. Solstice. It was mid-solstice. Why can I not... Why does that look so wrong to me? Yes, I've added an extra eye. That's why. Yeah, don't crap on those shows, Rory. Iconic sitcoms. Yeah, no, I'm not crapping on them. I don't really crap on most things. Like, maybe when I was younger, it was a little more touchy, but as I've gotten older, my general philosophy is to let people like things. Except if they're the Da Vinci Code. And every sequel related to them. In which case, you're wrong. No, I'm kidding. You can like it if you want. It's fine. Okay, it was the mid-solstice when the 4 moons and 3 suns of the east sky formed the arc of Gwenethan, the beauty, a goddess of the tribal people that occupied the outlands and dust ways. It's kind of liberating because I'm a little bit this person in my writing, to be honest. I've been writing a fantasy thing that I'm going to release in episodes. I said I was going to do it in April, but honestly, it was not done in April the way I thought it would be. And I had to go and do some rewriting, but it will be out soon. And a lot of it was like going back and being like, I gotta take out some of the fanficky stuff here. Big Drew says Rob Ford fanfic. Oh God. I think I'd lose my whole audience if I did that. We're mostly from Vancouver here, which means we are on the left coast. That occupied the outlines, lands, and dustways. I do plan to include those tenuous, weird, borderline racial problems that crappy fantasy just loves to dance around. Goddess of the tribal people that occupied the outlands and dustways of Centrosito province in the elder regions of northward winds. Oh, wait. Centrosto has to be capitalized. It's a proper noun. The Kalari wins. Absolutely. I love it. I love it. You're in. Kalwari. This is from Jenna here. Kalwari wins. A silhouette. GS says, please throw in some redundancy as a personal favor. It drives me nuts. I wonder if I could even break the habit of not putting in redundancy. I'll have to see if I can find opportunities of it. Some of these things are like rubbing against. It's like trying to, dance with your feet in the wrong shoe, right? Big Drew says, feels like an alien invasion interspecies war concept. Plot twist, though. The humans are the enemy and aggressor, and the reader wants the aliens to win. Yeah, pretty much. A silhouette of a beautiful Man, I mean, okay, so this is important. So I'm going to kind of leave it vague right now. I want everyone in the chat to make a decision. Is this being written by a guy or a girl? I realize there's more than that in the world, but for the purposes of fanfic, we're going to kind of focus on those two because there's a very different way that writing goes bad between those two. Young girls tend to do a certain thing and young guys tend to do something else. So I am curious which feel we should go for. Maybe guy and girl isn't the right way to characterize that, but I can't think of a better way to do it right now. Okay, a silhouette of a beautiful man. See, I thought of a way to say it, but it's too clean. Like it would be a pretty sentence, and I'm not trying to do that, so I'm trying to think of a worse way to say it. I was going to say a silhouette of a beautiful man caught in the winds. But that's already like an elegant use of verbs, and we're not going to be doing that. Big Drew says a beautiful man-like lizard creature. How about a silhouette of a beautiful being was standing and the wind was blowing on their shirt. So the villainous diary entries is trying to make a return. I'm going to actually shrink the text a bit. I know it's a little easier for people to read, but man, we go through too many pages on this size. Hopefully that's still readable for most people. Was blowing on their shirt, so it opened, and then you could see their beautiful chest. I just remembered something, and I cannot tell you it, chat. I'm so sorry, but it is an example of some of the worst writing I've ever seen. But unfortunately, it is too closely associated to me, and I simply couldn't share it here without possibly meeting that person again. But also, I'm trying not to target people in any way. But written by a woman, GS says, okay. So written by a woman means that we are going to get fixated on the characters and their relationships. Not because that's the only thing women in general write about. It's because female-led fan fiction, especially young female-led fan fiction, tends to go that way. Male-led fan fiction tends to ignore everybody but the protagonist. They become these flat pieces of the background that show up to be like, wow, what a great warrior you are. It's a very different feel. So, okay, we're going with a female author here. So, a silhouette of a beautiful being was standing and the wind was blowing on the shirt, so it opened, and then you could see their beautiful chest with its sharp relief of muscles and scales that were dancing in the sunlight like a leaf on the wind and turning many colors as he heaved in a sniff from his lizard-like face. Big Drew says the beings do not subscribe to man or woman. They only refer to one another as shim. And Big Drew gave me a thing here. Shim was bathed in the light of the third sun and the afterglow of the fourth moon when the sky cracked open and an army of human midgets flew in. Okay, excellent. We are definitely pulling that in. Jenna says, I feel so seen, me thinking back of my 80k Metal Gear Solid disaster flick. 80,000 words is an impressive amount of words to write about anything. But also, I kind of feel like Metal Gear Solid is its own fan fiction. Like, it barely reads like anything else. If somebody there was no game, somebody just took a description of those scenes and put them up on like LiveJournal in 2001, I would have been like, yeah, absolutely. This is fan fiction, and it always was. Okay. This is from, there's a little piece of prose here from Drew. Shim, for that, the pronouns that all the lizard folk used. It's gonna be really hard to keep up, Drew, damn you. Was bathed in the light of the third sun, and I guess I don't have to keep it up because consistency would be what a good writing did. And the afterglow of the fourth moon. I'm gonna move this sky cracked open line to a bit. We have to introduce the obvious, the classic of female-led fan fiction, the perfect character that everyone's infatuated with, the very essence of Mary Sue. Little ruffled, the stony faced and lizard like featured man Shim. Let's just say face again. A little ruffled, the stony faced and lizard like featured face of I'm just gonna go with the gut here. Garazon the futilitist. Greatest of his name. But when Sandrosa, let's make it a name that's like barely different than a real person's name, because it's obviously just her. Big Tree says, I thought of the idea of all their pronouns being Shim years ago and haven't had an opportunity to use it anywhere. Greatest of Shim's name. But when Sandrosa entered the room, she turned every head. Even the stoic one of Garazon. Sandrosa Everbeam. Oh my god. Sandrosa Everbeam. Everbeam is a name that only a person who had read fanfic could think of that quick, Jenna. Good job. She was so hot that when she would walk down the street to her job in a library. No, wait. In a hollow story store. There were always people staring, crashing their Vesponauts, not cycles, and whispering how one person could have such beauty. And here's the key feature to every fanfic female protagonist. However, she never noticed it and thought herself quite average. Gargon the mediocre. She was a bit in her own head and loved her hollow stories. She never liked looking in the mirror long. Now, I think what's important here, what I'm doing intentionally here, is how we're meandering off a path. I don't know if you guys have been tracking it, but like this is a part of being a writer, is like keeping track of your scene so that it makes sense. It started outside, staring at a sunset where he's standing on a cliff. Then she entered a room. We don't know which room we're in. And now we're off on a flashback of her day-to-day life. She's not even the character that was introduced at the beginning of this very long paragraph. And that is core to bad writing. You lose track of what you're doing. Like when I say your writing is indulgent, that's what it means. It's like whatever I want to do now, I'm just going to keep writing about it. And it's fine, by the way. It's fine to write however it is that feels good for you to write. But if you are trying to write for an audience, you need to pay attention to what the hell your scene is about and what it's doing, right? Lots of votes for not like other girls. Oh my god, yes. Taking me back to everyone I knew in high school. I don't really like the same things as other girls. I mean, I think I do. I like a lot of things that girls like. Who cares? She was a bit in her own head and loved her hollow stories. She never liked to look in the mirror long. It embarrassed her because she knew she was so ugly and couldn't see the beauty other people saw. The girls that went to her temple school with the nuns of, oh, what the hell was the goddess's name? And we've already written 2 pages of this. This is why this is popular. Gwenethin, that was her name. With the nuns of Gwenethin were all jealous and often told her lies about her beauty, which looks much like a model in reality. She has this empress dysmorphia. But she was not like other girls. Instead, she preferred to hang around by herself, listening to her sonic broadcaster Reading her hollow stories and getting lost in her head. The goddess just changes every time. That's true. Okay. Big Drew says the mirror's all shattered while looking back. Like when she looked in the mirror's shatter? Somebody articulate this to me. Maybe I'm thinking about too many things at once. It's not obvious what that means. See, the problem is now I'm losing track of where we've gone because this barely makes sense to me. Oh yeah, we forgot and we completely abandoned the shim thing. I don't know if anyone noticed that. But then we will randomly bring it back. Right now. Shim is glad. Oh yeah. They're going to talk in the third person using Shim. Shim is glad to see you. I don't remember his name, so let's call him Garbanzo. Said from his handsome lizard-like face. Green in the sunlight, but still with a chiseled jaw and handsome features. Oh, like as a part of the lore, every mirror shattered. Okay, I think I can work that in. Okay, yeah. Give me a second. Oh? I'm sorry. Shim didn't see you there. Shim, wait, let's add some pretension to this. Shim apologizes. Shim did not. Okay, we're gonna split up everything. It's slowly coming together. This weird Shakespearean angle that every fantasy wants to take, including my one. Shim did not see you there, said Everbeam from her very white smile. Wait, spoke. It's a subtle change, but it's an important one. Spoke Everbeam from her very white smile. Shim wonders if you have looked up from your... Why is there so many spaces here? From your hollow stories. Looked up from your hollow stories and noticed that many beasts have watched your every step since walking into this room. Oh, Jenna's got a great line here. Okay. From her smile, teeth shining like opalescent pearls. Jess says, I'm naming a doll Everbeam. You should go for it. Big Drew says, does Lord Troy of Helen show up? Cool. Have you watched your every step since walking into this Have watched your every step since walking into this alpha hall. And you should know, Everbeam. Every time it gets me. It's so good. That these are the finest knights of the wealthiest families. Oh. Spoke Everbeam. She went red with embarrassment, but then noticed Garzanan was lost in her eyes, and she looked to the ground, which is why she didn't see but heard a bunch of glass shatter across the floor like someone dropped a container, a bunch of glass shatter across the floor. Here, we'll put it there. She looked up and saw every mirror had shattered, and the floor looked like someone had dropped a container of silver mercury that was now splattered everywhere. Can we throw in a Potter nod just for the sake of it? Jenna says, listen, another fantasy trope is everyone has redonk honorifics for each other, like Aes Sedai. Sorry, Watt fans. I'm not sure what Watt is. Is Aes Sedai taken, or are you recommending that one? Big Drew says, Lord Thunderfist of Rockhammer. Now, here's the thing. If this goes well, Chad, I was thinking of... I didn't want to put it on you right away, but I was thinking we should do the guy version of this, which, by the way, is action movies that 12-year-old boys throw in their head. And if you ever talk to a guy and he's like, I didn't do that, he's lying. He's lying to you. Yes, he did. They were probably pretty elaborate, and they all involved him being very cool. Oh, Wheel of Time. See, I've never read Wheel of Time. I'm way off. Can we throw in a Potter nod? Okay, so Big Drew, where do you see Potter fitting in here? Like, how are we gonna fit it in the fiction? Or are we? Actually, you know what? Never mind. I think I got it. I think I know what we can do. I did like this line about army of human midgets, but I have another idea. Everyone was shocked. There were cries from the street that said stuff like, oh no, all the mirrors broke. How's that for redundancy? Maybe the midget battleships are named after characters from the Harry Potter world. Big Drew, you're being too subtle. I will show you how it's done. That said stuff like, oh no, all the mirrors broke. Then suddenly, from the fireplace in the center of the room, spilled out a red-headed boy and a cardigan sweater. And another boy with a lightning scar. They stood up and said, "Everbeam, we've found you. Are we too late for the mirrors?" Jenna likes that I'm putting in the Flu Network. Also that there's just a fireplace in this sci-fi world. Everbeam was too embarrassed to answer. So Goranon answered for her and said, "Yes, but who are you?" "I'm Ron Weasley." And this man here is Harry Potter. But no one recognized the names. Suddenly, there was a crack in the distance, and everyone ran to the windows. And there was in the sky the warships of Flortonocone. Made that up as I went along. A group of arrogant aliens without scales. And they were coming through a portal shaped like the Death Eater mark. End part 1. Big Drew says we gotta call him Gorgonzola at least once. Gorgonzola turned to Everbeam and said, "What do we do?" But Everbeam was too embarrassed to answer and just looked at the floor. I don't know if anyone's coming along with me on that one, but it's making me laugh. Oh yes, Crimson. I forgot to put a Crimson or Scarlet. Crimson is also a really good one. Crimson ships. Okay, let's just add some Crimsons in. Like, why do we have to do any work? The Crimson warships. Let's talk about some Crimson lips. Everbeam's Crimson lips were tightly kept shut because she was too embarrassed to answer. Everyone shocked or cries on the street spelled out a crimson hair-fitted boy. Yeah, we could throw some scarlets in. From his handsome face. Emerald in the sun. Emerald is the only way you can describe green pretentiously. I'm trying to find anything that's gonna work with. I got nothing else. Scarlet says she blushed scarlet. Okay, we'll add a blushed in here. Her cheeks flushing a beautiful scarlet color. Gronzoid noticed and held her to comfort her. Okay, we gotta stop. Throw in a few French expressions. Oh, I don't know if I could spell them. If there's any blue mentioned, it has to be cerulean or sapphire. No, hey, come on. Let's not attack Rory. I've definitely used cerulean. You're not actually attacking me. I'm just being silly. She was coniferous with envy. Okay. Obviously, we have a lot of fun with bad writing, so we should definitely do this again. But I think it's time for us to read back what we have here, because we're reaching an hour now. I know it flew by. All right, so we did terrible writing. It really turned into fan fiction kind of tropes, which is fine because, you know, fan fiction is not famous for being very good. The things that I think you should notice in our terrible writing is run-on sentences, lots of adjectives, a complete lack of focus so that the scene just changes in the middle of the paragraph, lots of repetitive words, and at some point the word scarlet is used unironically. I don't think we actually did that, but I'm going to see if I can find one as we read it out here. It was the mid-solstice when the 4 moons and 3 suns of the east sky formed the ark of Gwenethin the Beauty, a goddess of the tribal people that occupied the outlands and dustways of Centrosto province in the elder regions of Calvari winds. Calvari winds. Let's do the German W there. A silhouette of a beautiful being was standing and the wind was blowing on their shirt, so it opened and then you could see their beautiful chest with its sharp relief of muscles and scales that were dancing in the sunlight like a leaf on the wind. That's a mixed metaphor, by the way, and turning many colors as he heaved in a sniff from his lizard-like face. Shim, for that's the pronouns that all the lizard folk used, was bathed in the light of the 3rd sun and the afterglow of the 4th moon. Beautiful line, by the way. Drew really captures the spirit. Little ruffled. Few things, I should say. I realize that is bordering on too confusing. Few things ruffled the stony-faced and lizard-like featured face of Garazon the Futilitist, greatest of Shim's name. But when Sandrasa Everbeam entered the room, she turned every head, even the stoic one of Garazon. She was so hot that when she would walk down the street to her job in a hollow story store, there was always people staring, crashing their Vespa cycles, and whispering how one person could have such beauty. However, she never noticed it and thought herself quite average. She was a bit in her own head and loved her hollow stories. She never liked to look in the mirror long. It embarrassed her because she knew she was so ugly and couldn't see the beauty that other people saw. The girls that went to her temple school with the nuns of Gwenethin were all jealous and often told her lies about her beauty, which looks much like a model in reality. But she was not like other girls. Instead, she preferred to hang around by herself, listening to her sonic broadcaster, reading her hollow stories, and getting lost in her head. Shim is glad to see you, Garbanzo said from his handsome, lizard-like face, emerald in the sunlight, but still with a chiseled jaw and handsome features. Oh, Shim apologizes. Shim did not see you there, spoke Everbeam, from her very white smile with teeth shining like opalescent pearls. Shim wonders if you've looked up from your hollow stories and noticed that many beasts have watched your every step since walking into this alpha hall, and you should know, Everbeam, that they are the finest knights of the wealthiest families. Oh, spoke Everbeam. That's my favorite thing. Just pausing the whole story for her to say nothing. It's the little things that are there for me. She went red with embarrassment, but then noticed Garzanan was lost in her eyes, and she looked to the ground, which is why she didn't see but heard a bunch of glass shatter across the floor. She looked up and saw every mirror had shattered, and the floor looked like someone had dropped a container of silver mercury that was now splattered everywhere. That's another thing just for me. It's using a metaphor that is more confusing than just describing the thing. And it's my favorite thing because metaphors are supposed to help a reader understand something that's hard to otherwise understand if you directly explain it. That's one of the main purposes of them. And that doesn't work at all because people have seen broken mirrors on the floor, but not mercury. Everyone was shocked. There were cries from the street that said stuff like, "Oh no, all the mirrors broke." There's your redundancy, GS. Then suddenly, from the fireplace in the center of the room, spilled out a crimson-headed boy in a cardigan sweater with another boy with a lightning scar. They stood up and said, "Everbeam, we found you. Are we too late for the mirrors?" Everbeam's crimson lips were tightly kept shut because she was too embarrassed to answer. So Goranon answered for her and said, "Yes, but who are you?" "I'm Ron Weasley, and this man here is Harry Potter," but no one recognized the names. Suddenly, there was a crack in the distance, and everyone ran to the windows, and there was in the sky the crimson warships of the Flortonacone, a group of arrogant aliens without scales, and they were coming through a portal shaped like the Death Eater mark. Gorgonzola turned to Everbeam and said, "What do we do?" But Everbeam was too embarrassed to answer and just looked at the floor, her cheeks flushing a beautiful scarlet color. Gronzoid noticed and held her to comfort her. End part 1. Jenna says, "I'm glad that people are picking up on the subtleties here," because Jenna has picked up on one here. "I just love the mixing of tone. Like we have all the more formal sounding stuff, and then she was so hot." Yeah. I mean, okay, like part of it is I'm thinking to myself, like, it depends on what that person is doing because they're trying to fulfill their own fantasy, right? Like, so in the moments where they're trying to sort of perform as they understand fantasy in this high-minded, almost Shakespearean way, they're going to stick the landing on this kind of abundant language. But because the writer very clearly wants people to say they're hot, they will break that tone to put in what they want to hear about themselves. Because obviously Everbeam is a self-insert. GS says, "Fantastic. Loved it, Rory." We just send it away to an editor. Put it up on Amazon as a self-publish with a really good cover of Everbeam and the Lizard Man. Should that be the name? Everbeam and the Lizard Man? Wait, I got a better one. Everbeam and the Lizard Man. Meet the boy who lived. Big Drew says, "This has been so much fun. I really enjoyed it." What do you think? Do you think we should do the guy version next week? I feel like girls get picked on. I genuinely, here's my moment. I feel like girls get picked on more than guys for liking corny stuff. Like, I feel like if I went around and I said to people, isn't Twilight so bad? And everyone would be like, yeah, Twilight's so bad. The characters are so flat. She's so Mary Sue, blah, 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 blah. Which is true enough, but like, it's a children's book, basically. And children, you know, that's how they get into reading. And the lizard who loved me. Oh, perfect. But I feel like boys who like watched a bunch of 80s action flicks that have basically no substance either, flat characterization, you know, your Arnold Schwarzenegger who's tough and right in the beginning and can kill everybody. I mean, that's Mary Sue in the same way. And I feel like guys don't get dragged over the coals for that. I mean, there might be a few coy remarks here and there and like, oh, they're stupid. But I don't see the like campaign I saw in my lifetime against people for just liking silly romance stories. You know, I feel like sometimes little girls are not just allowed to like silly things the way that we sometimes like guys, you know, like wrestling or whatever, right? Like if a little girl really likes soap operas, I feel like they're going to get a harder time than a guy who likes WWE, even though frankly they're the same thing just with different tones. So there's my rant. Let people like things, in particular little girls. Let them like things. Like I got into an argument on Twitter, which is always a good way to start a day, about the fact that people really get bothered by Rey in the new Star Wars being very Mary Sue, which I think is true. But also I was like pointing out that like in the first movie, A New Hope, Luke Skywalker, this like bumpkin kid, somehow knows more about like everything than Obi-Wan, except for maybe like the Force, but he's still somehow doing better at it after a couple of faults. And then can somehow fly a space thing because he was good at racing around on land speeders, and can somehow make a shot absolutely no one else can make. Like, you know, it's not an argument against Luke, but it is pointing out that it wasn't exactly like a stellar written character in the first place. It was just sort of a fun insert for young boys who wanted the fantasy of going to space. I think that's fine, but I also think you should let girls who definitely like Rey just like Rey. Leave them alone. Big Drew says pro wrestling is a testosterone-fueled soap opera. No joke. It is. That's exactly what it is. It's fun. Let people have fun. Okay. Well, now that I've alienated at least part of my quiet audience, I guess, please remember to like this video. That is one way that the algorithm doesn't screw me around. And if you think this is funny or something like that, remember, you can send it to a friend with the time code and just show them the silly writing part if you don't want them to, if they aren't the type to watch the whole thing. Big Drew, Luke was the galaxy's only hope, not Obi-Wan. Yeah, that's right. And I want to be clear, I don't actually think that Mary Sue characters are the crime that so many people think they are. I think it's fine to have a Mary Sue character. You just got to know, I know that sounds like a wild thing for a writer to say, but let me clarify. Mary Sue characters serve one very clear and specific purpose. Therefore, generally a younger audience to self-insert without the complications of what feels like an overwhelming life. Like, it's a way of trying to live in a place where they know they're going to be safe because they understand that this is the protagonist. They're not going to do anything too compromising or wrong, so they feel safe there, and then they can have fun through that character. You know, video games use Mary Sue characters all the time for that reason. Link from Legend of Zelda is a good example of that. he doesn't have any flaws that drive the story. The story just happens to him, and he fixes everything. And he just happens to be the only one who can do it. And it works well for like a self-insert in fantasy. It's fine. My problem is when it's girls' versions, suddenly everybody's a literary scholar. Big Drew says I'm so many different types of nerds. So am I. Okay. You know what that means? It means it's time to go. It's time for me to close the shop. But let me add this. This is the first time since last year that we are going to use this outro screen. Because, we have little variant screens based on what it's actually doing in my part of the world. And we've been on the rain screen for a while. And we had the snow one for a little while there. But, thank you, everybody, for coming by. Thank you, Jenna, Just Fleece It Out, Big Drew, GS, and anybody else I missed for having a really fun stream. Come back next week. Maybe we'll do more of this kind of writing if this is what people enjoy doing, because I certainly enjoy doing it. My name is Rory. This has been The Varietal Show. Thank you so much for coming by. You can go where you want, but you can't stay here. Get out of my shop.